Hey, welcome back to the Sunday Serving channel where you come for gospel hope. And spring is a time of hope. Another glorious spring Sunday. God bless you all. In the Gospel of Luke, there's a whole bunch of parables where Jesus is trying to tell his disciples to teach them about life, about how to live, about how to have hope. And I love these two because these are parables about prayer. Prayer is so important, to ask God for his help, for his blessings, to give us strength, to give us hope, to give us faith. And even in the Lord's Prayer it says, give us this day our daily bread. So we ask God for any time we're in trouble. He says, ask, and I want to give it to you. So here's two parables about prayer. One about how important it is to continue to pray, to never give up. And the other one about our attitude when we pray. It's important. So here it is, the 18th chapter of Luke, the parable of the persistent widow. And he told them a parable to the effect that they ought to always pray and not lose heart. So he's telling us the purpose right away here. Luke is that we should always pray and we should never lose heart. We should never give up. We should never disbelieve. So this is Jesus' parable. He said, in a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor respected man. Now that's a terrible combination. You can imagine if you have to put your life in front of a judge who doesn't fear God, has no faith, and also doesn't respect people. That's not a very nice judge. I wouldn't want to put my life in his hands or her hands. It goes on, and there was a widow in that city who kept coming to the judge and saying, give me justice against my adversary. So this widow is being discriminated against, I guess. And so the point is that this widow would keep on going back to the judge, saying, please give me justice. And obviously the judge didn't listen. For a while he refused. But afterward he said to himself, though I neither fear God nor respect men, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will give her justice, so that she will not beat me down by her continual coming. And the Lord said, hear what the unrighteous judge says, and will not God give justice to his elect, who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long over them? So the point was, this woman kept coming back to the judge, and finally he relented, not because he believed what she had to say, but because she bothered him the whole time. And then Jesus told his disciples, that's how God is. If you keep asking, God will answer you because of your persistence. And he won't delay. And then I like this. This is how he ends. This is how Jesus ends this teaching. He says, I tell you, he will give justice to them speedily. But then he had this admonition at the end of this parable to the disciples. Nevertheless, he said, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? So when Jesus returns, will he find belief? Will he find faith? Will he find that we're here believing in God, praying, asking for what we know we need, asking for help? And it's this faith, it's this belief in God, this never give up, this faith in God. That's what Jesus wants. That's the kind of faithfulness we should have. And then it goes right on in Luke, and it tells this next parable about the Pharisee and the tax collector. Completely different sort of picture about what prayer is and how our attitude during prayer is so important. He told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and treated others with contempt. Right away it's telling us who he's talking to, people that were proud, self-righteous, and looked down on other people. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. So who would that be nowadays? A Pharisee was a combination of a lawyer and a religious leader. Understood the law, knew what was right and proper, but also was a respected religious leader who had all the ways to live down pat. Okay, so both culture and religion there. And the other a tax collector, someone working for the government. And that point in Jesus' lifetime, that was not for their own government who they had voted democratically. That was for the oppressive government of Rome who had conquered Israel and other territories. They weren't very well respected people. The Pharisee, standing by himself, prayed thus: God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I get. So this guy, this Pharisee, praying to God, had quite a long little introduction, a preamble, if you will, to his prayer to God. Totally unnecessary. God knows all of that. And he was just puffing himself up about how good he was. He's not like all these bad people, the extortioners and the unjust people like that tax collector. And I do good. I do the right things. I fast. I follow the laws. Well, Jesus stopped there. He didn't tell us the rest of the Pharisee's prayer. I'm sure it was beautiful and righteous and proper. But then he moves to the tax collector. Said, but the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. So we can just get the picture in our head, like this Pharisee, all proper, self-righteous, full of himself, going through the motions. And the tax collector, he knows he's not well-liked. He knows he's a sinner. He's ripping people off. He's profiting off other people's poverty. And he hardly dared to look up to God and beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Then Jesus goes on to his listeners here. He says, I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. So who was justified? Who was heard by God? The person that recognized their need of forgiveness, recognized that I am a sinner, have mercy on me. I don't deserve it, but I am a sinner. And then Jesus goes on here. He says, for everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. That's so important that we take that message in, that we ought to be humble before God in our prayers, to ask for help, to realize that we're sinners, that we need forgiveness, that we need mercy. And then we should also be humble to our brothers and sisters, our fellow men, our fellow people around us, our neighbors, our family. That we don't think we're right always, but we're willing to humble ourselves and rather look up, hold the other person up, and definitely hold Jesus, hold God up and say we need God's mercy, we need God's grace just like anybody else. So the attitude of humility and persistence in prayer, praying for what we need, praying for what we lack. Those are two very important topics, very important understandings to have about prayer. So let's carry that forward in our lives. It works. Believe in God. Believe in Jesus. God bless you. Have a wonderful week. See you next week. Come on, Remy.